and welcome to a very special episode, a bonus episode of Mentors on the Mic. I have been gone for a while. This episode will pop up on your feed, and you're probably going to just look at it and go, wow, this is a long time since I've seen Mentors on the Mic come up on my Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts. I took some months off, and I took some months off in the middle of a season. So I'm actually just going to resume my season because I make up the rules here for this anyway. But yeah, it's been a long few months. I really took some time for personal reasons. Maybe at some point I will go into what it was, but I am very excited for some episodes that are coming up. Also, Tribeca Festival is coming up, and I love covering the Tribeca Festival. It's always fun. It's always really great interviews, some red carpet opportunities. So I'm excited about that. And today I'm actually going to focus on a fun thing. So I had the opportunity to go to BookCon this year as a member of the press. I had my very own press badge, which is hanging up, but I won't show it to you now. Maybe I'll flash it on the screen if you're watching this on video. And yeah, I figured I would make an episode talking about my experience at BookCon and giving you an idea as whether you think BookCon is worth going to. Now, I will say I had something that I had to go, a previous commitment for day 2. So I only went to day 1. It was at the Javits Center in New York City, the next BookCon in 2027, which is crazy to say, will also be at the Javits Center. And so hopefully a lot of the kinks that I'm going to talk about today will get worked out. But there were a lot of really wonderful things about it. And there were also some things where I'm like, again, I do hope that they work that out for next year. But I'll tell you a little bit about my experience. These are 5 things that I wanted to share relating to BookCon. And hopefully that'll help you determine whether you'd want to go next year. So firstly, the lines were insane. And I have to start with that because it's your first impression. When I got off the train, I got off the 7 train on 34th Street, and you walk to 11th Avenue, I believe. You walk to 11th Avenue, and as soon as you hit 34th and 11th, there is already a long, long line coming from Javits Center, which is the entrance, I think, is around 37th Street or something. So for those 3 blocks, there are lines. The line went around the corner of that block. And then when you walk past those lines, because I had a press badge, so I knew I could just walk in, when you walk past those lines and you get to the Javits Center, there is also a long, long looping line right in front of the Javits Center. So my immediate thought was, let me take video. My second immediate thought was, oh my God, I don't think I would be able to do this if I didn't have a press badge. I personally, just me personally, don't think I'd be able to wait on those lines. I would have left, gotten some food, hung out somewhere for an hour, come back, see what the line situation was like. Because I do know that there are people who came at 11 or 12, didn't have any lines. It's just that it opened at a certain time for VIP, and then it opened, I think, for everyone else around 10, I believe, is when the show floor opened. So prior to being let in, there were just these long, tremendous lines. So I finally got in. There are coat checks, a couple different coat checks. So I put my coat in coat check. People come in with luggage because BookCon is a little bit intense in that people know they're going to walk out with a lot of books. And so they will bring luggage, put that in coat check. They're not allowed to bring it into the BookCon itself, but put that in coat check. And then periodically we'll go back for a fee. They have to pay a fee to put those books in their luggage. So the first thing I thought was lines were insane. It was really crowded. At one point in time, so there was the Javits Center stuff that I was like, okay, they really need to work on this for next year and figure out whether they're going to have less people in attendance, have more space at the Javits Center, because I think there was another event going on at the same time. But in addition, even the vendors themselves were not equipped for the amount of people that were in attendance. So, for example, there was a particular publishing house that I think was Source Books that every hour or every couple hours would drop free books. So you would get there and you could get a free book. Now, What they didn't anticipate was that so many people would know about this and that would want to line up for books. So prior to, let's say there was a book drop at 2 o'clock, they were going to start mobilizing line at 1:30. So starting at 1 o'clock, people were starting to crowd their booth. And their booth is not that big. So they're crowding their booth and going, okay, where's the line? Where's the line? Where's the line? Now, instead of starting the line really early and having people wait an enormous amount of time, what they would do is say at 1:30, which is when the line would start, we are going to start the line somewhere around this booth at some random point. We won't tell you where, and it'll switch up every book drop. And that's where the line will start. Now, the problem with that is there's, let's say, 100 and something people waiting around this book. And probably that's even not enough. It was probably like 150 at least around this booth waiting for that book drop. As soon as they decided, oh, the line is here, the amount of shoving and pushing to get to that line was intense. And I got shoved at one point. Other people I might have accidentally shoved other people. There were it was really intense. Things were being knocked down. People were getting a little hurt. And I just felt like the people there who were working there, they weren't equipped for this. Like, granted, they were making this up as they went along, probably. But I just wish that they had figured that out. Like, I'd wish that they had realized, okay, this is a dangerous situation. We're going to come up with something on the spot that feels less dangerous, because it really was dangerous, to be honest. So that was something that personally, not so great. I really hope that they work on that next year. So yes. And I've heard other BookCons are different than this. They haven't done a BookCon in 5 years. So I do think everyone was just not equipped for this level of intensity, plus maybe overcrowded in general from the BookCon, people itself. And then the vendors just weren't prepared for that as well. So I just hope that stuff gets taken care of. Second thing I wanted to mention was that it was really cool that a lot of these publishers in advance would tell you when their book drops were, because people wanted free books. And sometimes even the publishers would give out free ARCs or advanced reader copies of books. So Penguin Random House was a publishing house that on TikTok, I was able to identify as the first booth that I should hit. Everyone kept saying, if you were going to BookCon, Penguin Random House should be the first one. Why? Because they have two things that they're working on. One, they have this program, I forgot, it's called Matchmaker something program, where you will get a free book throughout the day depending on the results of a quiz you take. So you take a quiz, you find out what reader you are. I was a cozy reader. I prefer reading my books in a cozy nook or whatever. And they match you with a book that they have. So that was one program they had. And then the other thing that they had was periodic book drops the whole day. And those book drops corresponded sometimes with author signings. Now, I went into BookCon knowing my personal thing, I don't care as much about author signings. I don't need to meet these authors. If I wanted to meet these authors, I would ask them to be on my podcast. And I probably will. And I have actually asked a couple to be on my podcast. But I didn't need to meet them in an autograph situation, in a book signing situation. What I did want was the free books, because I'm a big reader. I've read about 51 books so far in the first 4 months of the year. So I love reading, and I wanted some books. So I had already, the previous two BookCon, the night before, 2 nights before, made an Excel spreadsheet, looked up all the books that I was interested in throughout both the Source Books book drop and the Penguin Random House book drop, and decided, okay, these are the books I'd want. These are the drops that I want to go back for. So really early, you get there as soon as I was able to get in. I got in a little bit early because I was press. So before the showroom opened at 10 a.m., there were people from VIP. There were people like me with press badges. And so I went to Penguin Random House, and it was already incredibly crowded. Before we have the swarm of people coming in at 10 a.m., already super crowded. So I was asking, okay, which line is for which? So they said one line was for free books and one line was for book signings. So I was like, okay, great. I don't need book signings. I just want the free books. So I got on the line, actually got on the wrong line at some point. Then someone directed me to the right line. It was a whole thing. Got on the right line, waiting. At some point, they were like, okay, we've cut off the lines at a certain place. I'm like, okay, thank God I'm on this line. Thank God I'm here. This is great. I get on the line. It's getting closer and closer to at one point, at the end of the line, they give you a wristband. And this wristband, they said, come back later in the day and you can get your book. And I was like, great, I'm so excited. This is so wonderful. I already know what times I want to come back for. So at 1:00, which was the book drop that I first wanted, I come back, I show them my wristband, and they go to snip it off. And I go, whoa, what are you snipping off? And they're like, we're giving you your books. We're snipping off the wristbands. So you get 2 of these books. And I was like, whoa, what am I here for? Like, what does this wristband correspond to? And they're like, oh, this is the matchmaker thing, which is if you took that quiz, which you said you did, and you're cozy, you get this free book. And I said, but what about all the book drops? And they were like, oh, no, that the book drops correspond with the book signings. So basically, I missed out on all the books that I wanted that day from Penguin Random House because I had gotten on the line for that one free book instead of on the line for the book signings, which were those free books. You basically had to get on that other book signings line, sign up for book signings, and then you would also be signing up for free books. So I was really upset because, like I said, I had put all that time into deciding which books I'd want. I picked at least 5 or 6 books that I was hoping to get throughout the day. And what I didn't realize was that those were not going to be available. I will also add that BookCon had a reservation list that we were supposed to try to get reservations for, like all these book signings throughout the day that you were trying to get reservations for. And apparently that was excuse my language, shit show. And people on TikTok were very, very upset. Very, very, very upset because it was a little poorly organized. And there were people who got like 8 book signings and then people who were VIP who got 0. So it wasn't properly dispersed. There were some people just that got way more, some people that got way less. So people went into BookCon having to have gotten reservations. I did not get those reservations for 2 reasons. 1, they gave out the reservations before I got my press badge, and 2, press badges don't allow you to get reservations for anything. So there were panels that I couldn't go to that were very exciting, that people loved, that I couldn't get into because it was reservation required. And there were book signings that I couldn't go to with free books that I couldn't go to because there were reservations. So if you are a proper ticket holder, you would hopefully sign up and not get, pushed out and get some great book reservations and book signings and get free books. But these, like the Penguin Random House, like Source Books, were the opportunity for me to get free books throughout the day. And I felt like I was really frustrated that I had gotten on this wrong line. They had told me one was for book signings, one was for free books. What they didn't sort of specify that it was one free book and that the book signings had multiple free books that they were offering. So basically got on the wrong line. It ended up being okay because not only did I get that first book, but I went back and I told someone there the situation, and I explained that there was a book that I really wanted to get, which was an ARC. It was an advanced reader copy of a book called Crash Course by Piper Lawson. I'd gone to her panel, which I'll talk about in a second, and I thought that the book sounded really interesting and sort of a little different than I normally read. It was a sports romance book related to like motorcycles and like FX and stuff. And I was like, I would want to read that. And she sounded really cool. I might try to get her on my podcast. We've been DMing. So I really wanted that book. And Penguin Random House was really nice. And they said, we actually have some copies because some of these people who got reservations to come here for the book signings never came and picked up their books. So we do have some extras, and they were able to give me one. So that was really exciting. Third thing, so we got lines were crazy, we got the Penguin Random House debacle, and then now we're going into panels. I love panels. So if you ask me, what do you want to do at BookCon? What are you excited about? My answer would be free books and panels. So while other people really want to meet their authors, their favorite authors, they want to find indie books that they want to purchase or they want to buy. There was a lot of things to buy there, which I'll talk about. The panels is where I was really excited about. So there are panels that I missed on day 2 that I would have been really excited for, including one that was related to like very famous audiobook narrators. But I didn't get to go to that. But there were some great panels. I went to 4 panels on day 1. So here were some of the panels I went to. I went to a panel called Spotlight on Tomi Adeyemi, who is a fantastic author, wrote Children of Blood and Bone, which I'm currently reading. And that's going to be adapted into a big Netflix movie. So I'm very excited about that. And she was very interesting. One thing I learned from Tomi Adeyemi, she has a book coming out this fall called The Siren. She was saying that when she writes her books, the process of writing, for all those writers out there, she said when she writes her books, she writes almost like a skeleton of a book, she said. And then when she goes back to edit, she now has a better idea for all the characters because she's been in that world for a while. And then she rewrites the whole book having a much better idea of who these characters are and her plots. And I thought that was really interesting because, I'm trying to write a book myself. And when I say that, it's like hard because I wrote a lot of it last year and just haven't really revisited it too much, but I plan to. And it is hard to write a book because you're in your head about whether it's good or not. I thought to myself, and I've talked to people about it, where you're like, this book is not where it's at. Like, this book is like kind of bad, right? Like, you always have that bad first draft and you're like, ugh. And the point is that I have to keep writing it so that I could then go back and edit it. And that's where the book kind of comes across. So I really liked when she said that. The other thing she said that was interesting was that I asked her a question at the end of the panel about the adaptation process and what was it like? What were some challenges? And she said, getting her book adapted to this Netflix movie has been so incredibly difficult. She said, she's very woo-woo. She was like, my soul needed to make this adaptation, needed to see this visually for my audience and to share that with the world. If I didn't have that strong of a call, I don't think this would have happened, because she said throughout the process of getting this adapted, she had to be wearing multiple hats and she had to advocate for her book again and again and again for years. I think she said 10 years or something like that. I have to look it up. But yeah, so that was interesting too, about how difficult it is to get things adapted. It sounded unbelievably painful and stressful. So that was the first panel. The second panel was called Sports Romance Panel, which again was about different sports romances, hockey, driving, soccer maybe was one of them, baseball. There were a couple others. Some of them had been writing sports romances again and again for many years. And the authors were Piper Lawson, Lynn Painter, Olivia Bell, and Katie Hoffman. And I asked them a question about how they approach their books. This was at the end of the panel. It was, again, the first question, I think. I asked a question about how they approach writing new books. Do they start with tropes? Do they plan the whole thing? Do they just start writing? Everyone's process was different, but they all agree that they don't start with tropes. And I thought that was interesting because I'm starting to write this book, like I said, and I'm maybe a third the way through in terms of word count. And all of a sudden, like, it only hit me after a third, like, should I have started with a trope, right? Like, you want your first book to be super commercial because they don't really, like, take many chances on debut authors and to begin with. So I thought to myself, like, it needs to be familiar, right? Because people aren't coming to read a book of yours because of you. They're coming to read a book of yours because they like the plot. They think that the plot is something familiar, and you leading with the tropes. Oh, this is enemies to lovers. Oh, this is accidental pregnancy. Oh, this is a second chance romance. Leading with the trope allows people to go, wait, I love those. This sounds really good. I'm going to do it. As opposed to, I love this author and I want to continue reading their art because it's a first time book. So, it's more commercial to start with tropes, but none of these authors said that they start with tropes. So I thought that was interesting. They said the tropes develop over time. So that was cool. The third panel I went to was about the TV adaptation of the book Margot's Got Money Troubles, with the author and executive producer Rufy Thorpe, as well as the executive producer of the movie Eva Anderson. And that was interesting. They played some clips from the show. I haven't seen the show yet. I'm actually reading the book. I'm like a little over halfway through. I don't love it. It is narrated by Elle Fanning, who is amazing. Great narrator, great actress. I just think the plot is not my thing. But the adaptation looks really cool with Michelle Pfeiffer, Nick Offerman, Elle Fanning, and a few others. Michael Angarano, who's been on the podcast. I think last year for Tribeca, 2 years ago. It's hard to remember. But yeah, I didn't ask a question. I actually left a bit early before the Q&A started. But I thought it was interesting. I don't really have anything in terms of takeaways. I just thought that they talked about the adaptation process and they shared some clips and it looked good. The last panel that I went to was at the end of the day. I came late to it. It was very full. Like this, I think that the audience was overcrowded in comparison to any of the others, which always had space. And it was a panel called "Are We Still Single Because of Fictional Characters?" Basically, like, are these book boyfriends ruining your ability to like look at men the same way? And it's with the Forking Fangirls podcast hosts, Christine Riccio and Natasha Polis, and a special guest, Julie Murphy, who was hysterical. And it was just a really fun environment. It was at the end of the day, so I feel like everyone's already tired. And it was just like they were laughing. People were sharing their biggest sort of theories that were maybe unpopular that like people were, still supportive of in that crowd. Sharing things about book boyfriends that they or just characters in general. Like, I really still like this character. I think these people should have ended up together. And these hosts really, really took a really great handle on the community. And I really learned from that. Throughout the whole day, I thought to myself many times, I want to pitch myself to be a moderator for a panel next year. This is something that I felt like I could do. A lot of the moderators were either podcast hosts or book influencers. So I really was like, oh, this is something I could definitely do. So I was learning from them, and I learned, it was a really fun environment. Like, I definitely feel like if I was to do this, I would definitely want to create that same type of environment. I mean, my podcasts usually are different. It's usually interview based. So it's different to have like go off, create segments and create things that people will love. And I learned a lot from their dynamic. So those were the panels that I went to. There were a few that I didn't get to go to, like Heated Rivalry had one with the showrunner. And there were a couple others that I was just like, oh, okay, I can't go to those because of reservation required. But there's a lot of things to do throughout the day. And so I was fine. The next thing was that there were some things that just didn't work. So, for example, there was like a treasure hunt that like you basically went around this whole Javits Center and you would find these like QR codes and you would have to scan the QR code on your phone. When I scanned my first QR code, it didn't work. Like, it literally for anyone, apparently it was like a faulty QR code. And I was like, okay, I'm not going to play this scavenger hunt game because it's like a treasure hunt game, because I was just like, it's already not working and there's no point. And so that was something they offered, but just was like, eh. And then again, I told you about the reservations required for signings, so I won't go into it too much, but there were fun things. So that was my next thing. So there were fun things throughout the day that they would scatter. For example, like a fan meetup. And then, so there's a fan meetup on this author, Sarah J. Maas, who wrote the Court of Thorn and Roses. She wrote Throne of Glass series. She wrote Crescent City. And she's really, really beloved. If you've read her, I have. Love it. It started my second reading journey a year and a half ago. And there was a fan meetup and they gave out bingo cards. People cosplayed and you would ask questions to everyone, see if you could cross off stuff off your bingo card related to Sarah J. Maas. Like, one of them was, do you have a tattoo of Sarah J. Maas? Can you name all the characters, the High Lords in A Court of Thorn and Roses? And so like people would go around and some people would know stuff and some people wouldn't. Some people would love certain characters, some people wouldn't. So it was kind of a fun thing that they had put together. There was also a trivia session, which I didn't make, a karaoke session. And then at the end of the day, there was a fantasy ball. So that wasn't for me. But I appreciate that they had stuff for everybody. People brought full ball gowns that they changed into at the end of the day for the fantasy ball, and I saw pictures. And people looked like they were having a lot of fun. It looked like a lot of people came to it. I think at these cons, fantasy ball type things are a normal thing, a normal part of the process. So I think people enjoyed that. And it's nice that they offer that for people. I just went home because I was super, super tired. But yes, overall, when it comes to BookCon, I liked it. I would recommend it to people. I really do hope, like I said, all these people, including BookCon, itself, would learn how to take out those kinks I was talking about. Hopefully the organizers and vendors will learn from this year and make the next one more efficient and better for their guests. I was thinking that if I had paid for this BookCon, I might have been a little more frustrated with all the lines. I mean, even like food lines were very long, which I anticipated, and I brought snacks, but still I was like, shouldn't be this long. There was also a disability line. So again, these lines were crazy, but if you did have an issue and reported it ahead of time, you could get on these disability lines, which were infinitely shorter. And sometimes they'd give you like a number and be like, come back. You don't have to wait on this line. So I personally walked out with 4 physical books, including an ARC, an advanced reader copy of a book. Crash Course doesn't come out, I think, until the fall. So I'm excited to read that soon. I got a QR code for 1 ebook or an audiobook, stickers, bookmarks, and free bracelets. So all of that was free. That was really fun. I've yet to read one of these books, but I'm excited to. And all this to say that I will be interviewing more authors this season. I will be starting a series about book adaptations. And so there are a lot of books coming out, as we know, that are being made into movies and television shows. And I want to talk about it because I, again, read a ton. And this is a really fun thing for me. I also think that mentorship-wise, we can learn from all types of books, even if it's fantasy, even if it's romance, even if it's contemporary fiction, even if it's historical fiction. I just feel like it's a fun environment. Some of it's just entertainment. Some of it is for learning. And it's just a fun vibe. And personally, I think at adapting a book, as we talked about with Tomi Adeyemi, is really difficult and challenging. And I want to sort of focus on that too. Like, what does it look like to adapt a book into TV and film? How much do we have to take out? How much do we have to change in terms of story structure or plot points? Because sometimes as a visual medium, we need to change things. And so we're going to talk about that, focus on that, maybe get some guests involved. So at some point, I'm going to do one about Margot's Got Money Troubles. I just have to finish that audiobook, which I'm not thrilled about, but the show looks much better. I'm very excited to cover Off Campus, which is a book by Elle Kennedy. It's a series that's going to play on Amazon Prime. And they're starting off with the first book, which is The Deal. And I think it's already been picked up for second season. So they're already going to be doing the next one, which I think is The Mistake, but I'm not sure. And maybe we'll go back in time, do one on People We Meet on Vacation in the future. In July, we're going to do The Odyssey. I'll probably have people vote on which books I should talk about in terms of adaptations. I'm going to see the book, see the movie and TV show, and then compare and contrast and talk about it. So that's all for today. Fun little bonus episode all about BookCon, all about my book adaptation series coming up. I'll probably get that right by the time we share that, which will start soon. And thank you guys so much. I really appreciate you guys. I appreciate all the messages during the hiatus and just the support that I've gotten. I'm glad that some of you just find this podcast, whether it's recommended by a friend or you randomly looked something up and this one came up. I just appreciate you. Find me on Instagram at Michelle Simone Miller or at Mentors on the Mic or both. Send me a DM. I love hearing from you guys. It makes me really sort of feel connected to the community and connected to you guys in a way that, just talking straight into a camera or into my microphone doesn't always provide. So yeah, let me know what books you want me to talk about. I will be sharing longer in-depth interviews more and more, especially as Tribeca comes up. Have some fun surprises there. And for now, have a great week, guys. Thank you so much for listening to Mentors on the Mic. If you enjoyed the episode, please share it with a friend in entertainment you know would love it. Let me know what you've learned or what stayed with you on our Instagram at Mentors on the Mic. I love reading your messages. You can also find me at Michelle Simone Miller on Instagram. On both accounts, I'll be sharing even more information about our mentors. Talk to someone about what you learned today who would really appreciate it and send them the episode. Also, if you love the show, please go ahead and leave us a rating and review on iTunes. It really makes a huge difference in growing this. It makes it easier for people to find our podcast, and I love reading your reviews. So thank you so much, and I'll see you next week.